Hello and welcome to my PowerPoint presentation of my play report of Cataphracts, a month until the snow. The first question you may have is, what is Cataphracts? In short, it's a real-time operation war game developed by Sam Sorenson and is kind of the new hot stuff on the RPG blogosphere. Its main draw is a lack of information and real-time aspect. If a march of troops takes 2 weeks in game, then it takes 2 weeks in real life to move those troops from point A to point B. Generally, players are given a low-res map as well as a locally detailed hex map that the actual game takes place on, preventing perfect information and only allowing the players to know what's directly in their surroundings. It spawned numerous copies with player counts reaching the hundreds in some games, and is generally run on Discord. It is a war game, primarily focusing on the operational level of war, i.e. how troops are getting supplies, how they get where they're going, rather than the strategy, i.e. why you fight and the goals of the war, or the tactics, the moment-to-moment combat, like in strategy war games, like in Total War or any tactical elf game you can think of. Each player is generally assigned a role as a military commander within a given faction with their own associated troops. Some troops may have special abilities, like requiring fewer supplies, having better travel capabilities, and all troops require supplies to avoid starving. Each faction has their own specific goals that they're trying to achieve on the map. Commanders can have their own personal goals, either provided by the referee or just made up by the boredom of the player. And boredom is important because of the real-time aspect, as mentioned above. If you'd like more detail, I would recommend you to read Sam Sorenson's blog post, linked in the description, where he goes over his own thoughts on the game. So what does it actually look like in play? Each day, the referee begins with a scouting situation, which is generally a small cutout of the hex map of what your scouts can see. Based on this information, the commander can give orders to their troops, like marching southwards, besieging a town, or foraging for supplies. The referee then adjudicates these troop movements, daily supply consumptions, and if it comes to it, battles, and reports back what happens to the commander. A key component of the game is that you're not allowed to share information with any other commander unless you're in the same physical location, or if you send a physical letter, which takes real time to travel and can be lost. A lot of the game is waiting around in a town, sending a letter and hoping for future orders. And speaking from personal experience, knowing that letters can be potentially lost is a huge source of anxiety. Now about the actual game I played, A Month Until the Snow. This game was run by the visionary referee Cataphracts, blog linked in the description, as an experiment into running and playing Cataphracts. The playtime and player count were deliberately restricted as part of this experiment. This game was set in Sardatvi, a pseudo-historical Georgia, where 9 commanders of 4 different factions have 1 month of real time to try and fulfill the faction's goals and dominance over the area. After 1 month, the game ends as the snow begins to fall, and the mountain passes freeze over, trapping any armies within the valley. Introducing the factions. The Triarchy could be said to be the protagonists of the region, and they are the only faction with 3 commanders, as all others have 2. They're based loosely off the Caucasus, and they were previously ruled by a king, whose recent death has created a power vacuum. His 3 children have carved out a triarchy of princedoms and must maneuver and politic between the powerful foreign empires who wish to take over their lands, while also sorting out their own internal succession. Now for the second faction, the Khaganate. I personally had 0 interaction with this faction, so it's the one I know least about. They're based loosely off the Mongolic and Turkic Khaganate of history, and their leader, the Khagan, is newly elected and must prove himself in blood. The northwestern fortresses of the region grow inadequately defended, and they see this as an opportunity to do some nice raiding and take over of the area. The third faction is the Empire. and they're based loosely off the Persian Empire. They're powerful, rich, with their army supplemented with powerful elephants. They're the sworn rivals of my personal faction, and we've fought over this land for generations. Their leader, the satrap, views Sardatvi as a rural backwater compared to the empire proper, but she's the one in charge, and she'll fight to defend it, and aims to establish the triarchy as a client state. Now it comes to my personal faction, the Republic. We're based loosely off the Roman Republica, and our specialty is having lots of heavy infantry, which counts more in a fight than regular infantry, as well as having a special eagle standard which we can wager in order to vastly increase our troop value at the risk of losing it permanently. Our leader, the proconsul, is the governor of the region and highly ambitious. The death of some backwater barbarian king has given the chance to conquer and do some looting and fund his future political career back home and return as a hero, bringing back riches to the Republic. I played the commander, Legate Gennadius Licinius Geta, commander of Legio 11, Gemella. Born the fourth son of a wealthy family, I'm stuck in the barbarian west doing admin work. However, with this new power vacuum and under the command of the ambitious proconsul, I can do some looting in order to fund my personal career and get into politics back home. I have an army of 3,200 heavy infantry, 300 cavalry, 40 wagons, and 40 transport boats, and I largely fail at most of my objectives. The Republic begin the game in control of the easternmost region of the map. Our primary goals, as briefed to me by the proconsul, are to take the Zoom and the land surrounding it, gain a port on the Western Sea, and establish the triarchy as a client kingdom, as well as acquiring as much loot as we can physically carry. Our initial scouting information is as follows. We have the eastern region, with the triarchy to our north, as demarcated in blue, and the empire to our south, as demarcated in purple. Before the game began, we received several letters of friendly correspondence from the triarchy, with offers of treaty and tokens of free passage through Skveli, the canal city that controls passage between the eastern and western sea. They seem worried about the Khaganate to the west, and will not interfere with our quarrel against the empire, and we viewed them as potentially even being allies if the winds were in our favor, and they saw a benefit in joining our cause. Our initial war plan prioritizes the taking of the Zoom from the empire. The proconsul will march southwards, taking as many towns as possible before wrapping up to the Zoom. I would negotiate with the triarchy to gain access to the port of Ertzik, sail my troops there before joining forces with the proconsul and making a combined assault onto Zoom. This is, of course, when things begin to go wrong. I first marched northwards in order to treat with one of the princes of the triarchy, Tavadi Lasha Udzvedani. I asked for access to the ports of Ertzik, and he hands over the tokens from his brother, the Erzim Tavari, the leader of the faction, that let me pass through Tsukveli. We exchange gifts and we part, and it's very cordial and polite. However, importantly, I do not receive access to Ertzik like an idiot. Now begins a comedy of errors. First, I realize I don't have enough boats to sail all of my troops, so I split my army into two. One half goes to the ships towards Ertzik, while the other half forages for supplies around Taranto. I aim to disembark the first half and then send the ships back to bring back the other half. I arrive at Ertzik, and of course the garrison commander doesn't recognize these tokens as for elsewhere on the map, and I forgot and failed to receive written permission from any of the princes. I write to the princes for backup and the proconsul for our initial friendly letters and still get rejected, as none of them explicitly allow me into port. After debating whether to assault Ertzik on my crappy transport boats, I decide it's too risky to risk all of my troops on an assault and sail back to Taranto in shame. It's day 9. I have achieved nothing. I gather all my troops again at Taranto, the port I sailed from, and march back to Ertzik, while a severe storm slows my progress, making me even slower. On day 11, I arrive at Erzsik again, and they continue to block my progress, even with further exchanged letters from Triarchy, as all of them fail to mention explicitly that I'm supposed to be able to pass. I dawdle a little bit as I don't want to offend our potential only allies. In one of the letters I received from the Erzim Tavari, he asked to treat on day 12, forcing me to wait an extra day to prevent offense. And on day 13, I finally had enough and decided to take Erzsik in the storm. Day 14 is a day of partying and pillaging for the army, for like me, they've been itching to sack the city that's been blocking our path. Throughout this entire process, the referee has been goading me to sack the city with this little vizier emoji in the bottom right. What a funny little guy. On day 14, the Erzim Tavari of the Triarchy finally arrive with his army. His army looks starving and haggard, and he asks for a parley. He asks for ship access at Erzsik so he can sail to Ardaklau, which is the western region of the map, and it was very satisfying for me to say no, as it's been 2 real-life weeks I've been trying to get past through this town. And at any rate, there aren't any ships here anyway, as before the beginning of the game, one of the other princes had sailed them elsewhere. On day 15, the Erzim Tavari's army are camped outside the walls of Erzsik, which I now control, and begin foraging for supplies to stop starving. At this point, the referee mentions offhandedly that his command tent is poorly defended. It's literally too good of an opportunity. Combined with some goading letters from the proconsul, my boss, I decide to make an assault on the Erzim Tavari, trying to capture him as ransom, and begin the establishment of a client state. His army is disordered, granting me an initial advantage, but his mounted knights are peerless, and I managed to secure the retreat by trying to pin my legions against the river. I failed to capture the prince, but managed to deal a devastating 50% of his army in casualties. Now day 16 and day 19 are fairly boring due to heavy fog blocking my scouting, preventing any real action. I march back to Erzsik in fear of retribution and any reinforcements of the prince, and sail down my ships from Toronto just in case, and begin stocking up on supplies. On day 19, I receive a letter from the proconsul ordering me to take to Zum, lighting a fire under my butt. Upon receiving the orders, I immediately begin marching westwards. A bridge fortress blocks my path, and it flies colors associated with the Triarchy, but not from any commander I've met. They seem strong with thousands of infantry and seem too well defended to besiege. Given the time limit, I'm forced to go off-road and leave my wagons behind, and the bastards in the fort steal my wagons after I leave. At this point, we get an ill omen in the out-of-character chat. The referee has posted several images captioning the Northmen Crusaders of some Viking-looking fellas. It looks ominous, but no one knows how it will affect them at this point, or at least I don't. As I approach the Zum, my scouts spot the foreshadowed Northman fleet sailing up the river. 80 ships strong, they seem like a force to reckon with. In worse news, the satrap of the Empire's army is also close behind at the bridge fort I bypassed. Her army is thousands of infantry, thousands of cavalry, and also 50 elephants just to rub salt in the wound. I make an executive decision to try and take to Zum as fast as possible, in hopes that I can succeed before they arrive and use it as a defense against these 2 incoming armies. I fail. Mid-morning siege, I get jumped by the Northmen. They have special shallow boats allowing their ships to run aground and allowing their troops to disembark with incredible speed. Trying to siege the Zum while preventing the Northmen from surrounding me, I force a stalemate. I repel the Northmen while they prevent me from taking the Zum. By twilight, the satrap's army arrive to kick my ass. I perform a fighting retreat into the mountains, as my smaller army size and lack of wagons means I manage to escape, while only taking 10% casualties from both battles. I retreat off-road to Shuntan, one of the southern empire cities that the proconsul's uncontested southern conquest has captured, with the satrap's army in close pursuit. During this retreat, I hear of an ill omen. the Erzim Tavari, prince of the Triarchy, is dead, with his throat slashed, with sawn-off ox horns stabbed through his eyes. Given that oxen are a symbol of Republic, I suspect that either the proconsul did it to send a message or someone is framing this. Regardless, I managed to reach Town without getting caught, as the satrap is forced to forage for supplies to feed her elephants. The whole time I'm getting my ass kicked by the Northmen and the satrap, I'm sending letters to the proconsul for backup and keeping him informed, including a capture letter I managed to intercept between the satrap and Northmen, so he's well informed about what's happening. The proconsul arrives in Town as reinforcements with wagons full of loot. He has sacked the Empire's capital, Ilulgashin, and the hostages he captured means the Empire's army is forced to turn around. The wagons couldn't fit all of the loot, so the proconsul takes my cavalry as well as the wagons, in an attempt to retrieve the remaining loot, while I control both infantries in order to defend our retreat at Town. This brings us to the deadline and the end of the campaign. And as part of the epilogue, the proconsul's looting mission is repelled by the Northmen's army as they went down to Ilulgashin to reinforce him, while the satrap's army have managed to block our only way out of the mountains eastwards. As our armies are roughly equal in strength, neither side has a definitive advantage, and both want to avoid a direct conflict, leading to a stalemate where we're both trying to starve the army out. We're still waiting to see how the campaign finally resolves and who's the actual real winner of the campaign, and hopefully there will be a blog post out soon. In conclusion, Cataphracts is a fun game, and you should play it if you get the opportunity. Looking back, I wish I was a bit more decisive, marching my troops towards the Zoom, as I was only half a day away from achieving one of our faction's main objectives of taking the Zoom. And with the defensive benefit of controlling the fort city, I might have been able to repel the Empire's army. This game also gave me some real-life anxiety, as time zones meant that I would receive scouting updates around 10 p.m. I would update the orders near midnight and receive what actually happened to my troops around 3 a.m. Several times I woke up at 5, checked my phone, learned about what happened to my troops, and failed to go back to bed thinking about my Roman legionaries. And as final thoughts, if anyone asks me how many times a day I think about the Roman Empire, the true answer is a lot more than I used to. Thank you for listening.